You don't forget the sound of your own mother's heels walking away from you, especially when it happens at an airport, and you realize she's leaving you behind. I was 15 years old, standing at gate 32 of LAX, when my entire world cracked open. One hand clutched the handle of my too small suitcase. The other held a wad of bills, $200 that my mom had pressed into my palm like a cheap consolation prize. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even look back. Instead, she adjusted the strap of her designer purse, slid her arm through Robert's, the wealthy stepfather who had recently replaced my dad, and walked straight toward the security line with his 3 children, their boarding passes in hand, their vacation outfits perfectly coordinated, their smiles bright with anticipation. And me? I wasn't even on the passenger list. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. There had to be a ticket waiting for me somewhere. A missed detail. I stepped toward the airline attendant and stammered, "Excuse me, I think you forgot mine." But the woman behind the counter frowned, shook her head, and tapped her screen. "Only 5 passengers booked on this reservation," she said gently. Glancing over at Robert and the others, my stomach dropped. My breath caught in my throat. I spun toward my mom, confusion burning through me like acid. "Mom?" She pulled me aside, her face flat, almost bored. "Emily, listen. There's been a change of plans. You're not coming with us." I swear my heart stopped beating in that moment. What? Did I do something wrong? My voice cracked like glass. She sighed, the way people sigh when they're tired of traffic or waiting in line, annoyed, inconvenienced. "Robert thinks it's important for this trip to be just him and his kids. A bonding experience. You'll be fine. It's just 2 weeks." I shook my head so hard my vision blurred. "But I'm your daughter. I'm family too." She avoided my eyes, dug into her purse, pulled out that wad of cash. "Here's $200. Take an Uber home. Mrs. Peterson has the spare key if you need it." And then, as if she hadn't just detonated my entire life, she gave me a dry kiss on the forehead, whispered, "You'll be fine," and walked away. Her heels clicked against the tile. The sound echoed louder than the boarding announcements, louder than the rolling suitcases, louder than the pounding of my heart. Robert didn't even glance at me. His kids smirked as they followed him through security, and in less than 5 minutes, they were gone. My mother, my own mother, had left me standing there like unwanted luggage. I remember staring down at the cash in my hand. The bills blurred through my tears until they looked like crumpled trash. That was my worth to her. $200 and the promise of a fridge stocked with pizza money. I wanted to scream, to chase after her, to beg, but the lump in my throat was too heavy. My legs refused to move. I just stood there, shaking, as people rushed around me, hugging their kids, kissing their spouses, hurrying to their vacations. To them, I was invisible, just a crying teenager on an airport bench, background noise in their happy stories. The departure board above me shifted from boarding to departed. With each flick of the screen, my hope drained out of me. They were really gone, and I was really, truly alone. Hours passed like a cruel trick. I dragged my suitcase from bench to bench, pretending I had somewhere to be. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but every time I checked it, there was nothing. No call. No text. I sent her one last message anyway. "Hope abandoning your kid was worth the first-class upgrade." Delivered. No reply. By late afternoon, I was exhausted, hollow, my throat raw from holding back sobs. I wandered into the food court and bought the cheapest thing I could, a small order of fries. The cashier, a woman with kind eyes, looked at me too long, like she could see straight through my lie when I forced a smile. 10 minutes later, she came back with a chocolate milkshake. "On the house," she said softly. "Whatever's going on, sugar and chocolate never hurt." Her kindness nearly broke me. I whispered, "Thank you." And my voice trembled so badly the straw shook in my hand. But even with the milkshake in front of me, I couldn't ignore the truth. I had no ticket, no ride, no key to the house, no plan, and no one coming to get me. I splashed water on my swollen face in the bathroom mirror and hardly recognized the girl staring back. Eyes red, shoulders hunched. A stranger. My chest ached with a realization too sharp to deny. The invisible thread I thought tied me to my mother had just been cut, permanently. 6 hours since she left. 6 hours of trying to pretend I wasn't abandoned. 6 hours of waiting for a text that never came. The airport, once buzzing, began to shut down for the night. Shops pulled down metal gates. Families thinned out. And I stayed there, clutching a phone with 10% battery left, trying to figure out how a mother could walk away from her child as if it cost her nothing. And that's when I scrolled through my contacts. Past friends who no longer answered. Past relatives who barely remembered me. Until my eyes landed on one name I hadn't said out loud in years. Dad. I hadn't spoken to him since I was 12. My mother had told me he didn't care anymore, that he'd moved on with a new family, that he had no place for me. My thumb hovered over the call button, my chest tight with dread. What if she was right? What if he rejected me too? But with tears burning down my cheeks, I pressed call. And in that moment, I had no idea that dialing that number would change everything. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was seconds away from hanging up when a voice came through. Deep, familiar, hesitant. Hello? I froze. My throat closed up. I had rehearsed 100 ways to start this call, but every word vanished. Hello? Is anyone there? My breath shuddered out. Dad, it's me. It's Emily. The silence on the other end lasted only a heartbeat, but it stretched forever. Then his voice cracked, raw and urgent. Emily, sweetheart, is that you? Something inside me shattered. The dam broke. Words tumbled out between sobs. The remarriage, the mansion, the vacation, the 5 boarding passes, the $200. Every sentence felt like ripping open a wound that had been festering for years. She left you. Alone? At the airport? His tone shifted, hard as steel. Yes, I choked. I don't know what to do. Tell me where you are, he said firmly. Which airport? LAX. International Terminal. Now. Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming to get you myself. What? No, you don't have to. Maybe you can just help me get a cab or… Emily, he interrupted, voice steady, unshakable. I'm coming. 3 hours. Can you stay safe until then? 3 hours. The longest, shortest promise I'd ever heard. I whispered, yes. When the call ended, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. For the first time since my mother's heels had clicked away from me, there was a thread of hope to hold on to. But those hours crawled like days. The airline's customer service desk gave me a small, private waiting area away from the curious stares. They offered me a sandwich and juice, their kindness wrapping around me like a blanket I didn't feel I deserved. One of the staff leaned close and said quietly, "This happens more than you'd think. Parents, changing plans, leaving kids to fend for themselves. You're not alone." Her words should have comforted me, but they cut deeper, because I was alone. I curled up in the stiff chair, my suitcase pulled tight against me. The airport buzzed on the other side of the frosted glass walls, rolling suitcases, muffled announcements, the distant whir of escalators. It was the sound of movement, of people going places, while I sat frozen, waiting for a father I hadn't seen in 3 years. Every doubt my mother had planted in me clawed its way back. He's moved on. He doesn't want you. He's not cut out to be a dad. What if this was just another setup for heartbreak? What if he came, but resented me? What if he didn't come at all? My eyes burned as I remembered the scraps of memories I had left of him. His hand steady on my bike as I wobbled down the sidewalk. His booming laugh during bedtime stories. When he changed his voice for each character. A dollhouse he built for me one Christmas morning, his face lit up with pride when I squealed. If he loved me back then, why did he disappear? Why hadn't he fought harder? My stomach twisted with hunger, but the sandwich sat half-eaten. My chest felt like it was caving in. I stared at the clock on my phone until the numbers blurred. 2 hours. 2.5. By the time the 3rd hour neared, I was half asleep, my head heavy against the cold wall. My dreams tangled with fears, sirens, empty hallways, voices telling me I wasn't wanted. Then came the announcement. Attention, please. Would Emily Carter please come to the information desk? Emily Carter to the information desk. A quarter. Emily Carter. A quarter. A quarter. A quarter. Attention, please. I jerked upright, my pulse hammering. Was this it? An airline employee appeared at the doorway. Your father has arranged for you to meet him, she said kindly. This way. We didn't walk toward baggage claim or the exit. We moved through narrow corridors and quiet security checkpoints until we reached a set of glass doors leading to the tarmac. And that's when I saw it. A sleek private jet sat waiting, its polished surface glowing under the floodlights. Stairs lowered, and walking down them, tall in a dark suit, was a man whose profile I knew before I could even think. My father. He looked older. Silver streaks threaded his dark hair. His shoulders carried the weight of years. But when his eyes found mine, everything else disappeared. They were the same eyes I remembered, warm, crinkled at the corners, brimming with something I hadn't seen in so long. Love. For a moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us felt like all the lost birthdays, all the empty holidays, all the years stolen. Then he stepped forward, fast, like he couldn't hold himself back. Emily, he said, voice thick with emotion. I can't believe it's really you. That. I wanted to run into his arms, to collapse against him like the little girl I used to be. But the wounded teenager in me hesitated, stiff with suspicion and pain. He seemed to sense it. He stopped just short, his eyes searching mine. I'm so sorry. For everything. For not being there. For not fighting harder. Something in his voice broke through the walls I had built. Tears surged up again. Hot and unstoppable. You didn't want me anymore, I whispered. She said you didn't care. That you moved on. His jaw clenched. His eyes darkened with grief and fury. That was never true. Not for a single day. And then he opened his arms. This time, I didn't hesitate. I crashed into him, sobbing into his shoulder, the years of abandonment spilling out in ragged gasps. He held me so tightly it felt like he was anchoring me to the earth. Like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. We stood there on the tarmac, father and daughter, reunited under the roar of jet engines and the sting of tears. For the first time in years, I felt safe. But I had no idea the truth he was about to reveal, the hidden letters, the stolen child support. The years of deception that would shatter me all over again. The inside of the jet felt like another world. Soft leather seats, polished wood tables, warm lighting that wrapped around me like a blanket. I had never seen anything like it. I slid into the seat across from my father, clutching my backpack like a life vest. He studied me, his eyes gentle but searching. Are you hungry? Thirsty? I shook my head, though my stomach growled in betrayal. A flight attendant offered snacks, but I couldn't bring myself to take anything. My throat was too tight. For a long moment, we just sat there, the hum of the engines filling the silence. I didn't know what to say, didn't know where to start. Finally, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His voice was steady, but heavy. Emily, there's something you need to know. Your mother has been keeping things from you. I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. What do you mean? He pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were copies of checks, letters, court documents. Dozens of them, neatly organized by date. I blinked, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. What are these? They're proof, he said softly. I never stopped trying. I sent child support, extra money, birthday cards, Christmas gifts, letters. For years. The air rushed out of my lungs. My chest ached. I flipped through the stack, page after page. Checks cashed in my mother's name. Letters addressed to me in his handwriting. Motion after motion filed with the court, asking for visitation rights. All those years, she told me he didn't care. That he'd moved on. That he didn't want me. And here was the proof. She had lied. Over and over. I pressed a hand against my mouth, nausea rolling through me. She said you didn't want me. That you barely paid. That you— My words fell apart. His eyes filled with tears. But his voice remained steady. That was never true. I wanted you every single day. I fought for you. I begged the court. I sent everything I could. She kept it from you. All of it. I shook my head, flipping through the letters again. Birthday after birthday. Christmas after Christmas. His handwriting full of love, of longing, letters that should have been in my hands but instead gathered dust in some hidden drawer. The betrayal burned hotter than anything I had ever felt. I thought back to nights we ate ramen 3 days straight because my mother said we couldn't afford groceries. The second-hand clothes she shoved at me with a sigh. The way she rolled her eyes whenever I asked about him. And all along she had the money. She had the letters. She had the proof he cared. My hands shook so hard I nearly tore the paper. She lied to me. She lied to me my whole life. Tears spilled down my cheeks, fast and hot. My father reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His grip was firm, grounding. I didn't show you this to hurt you, he said quietly, but you deserve the truth. You deserved it years ago. Dashin 7. The grief came crashing down, heavy and relentless. Grief for the birthdays I thought he forgot. For the phone calls I thought he never made. For the nights I cried myself to sleep, thinking I wasn't worth his time. I buried my face in my hands, sobs ripping through me. The little girl inside me who had clung to hope was screaming, "Why didn't she let me love him? Why didn't she let him love me?" He moved to the seat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. At first I stiffened, unsure if I could accept comfort from the man I thought abandoned me. But then I leaned in, because the truth was clear now. He hadn't abandoned me. She had stolen him from me. "I kept your room ready," he whispered against my hair. "All these years, just in case you came back." I let out a broken laugh, half sob, half disbelief. "You really did? After everything? Every year I bought you gifts. Every year I wrote you letters. I couldn't deliver them, but I couldn't stop either. I couldn't give up on you." The sobs came harder. My chest hurt from the force of them. But for the first time, the grief wasn't just pain. It was release, because now I knew the truth. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't unwanted. I was stolen. The plane lifted into the night sky, carrying me away from the terminal where my mother had abandoned me. Each mile we climbed felt like peeling away a layer of lies. The city lights fell away, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I belonged somewhere. I curled against my father's side, exhausted, my tears soaking his shirt. His hand stayed on my shoulder, steady, protective. As sleep pulled me under, one thought circled in my mind. If my mother could lie about this, what else had she lied about? When the jet touched down in Seattle, dawn was just breaking. The sky was painted in shades of lavender and pale gold, and the city lights shimmered against the water like scattered jewels. I pressed my forehead against the cool window and whispered to myself, "This feels like another planet." A black SUV waited at the private terminal. My father placed a steady hand on my back as we stepped outside into the chilly morning air, 52 degrees. The kind of cold that bit through the thin sweater I wore. Without a word, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm, faintly smelling of cedar and cologne. For the first time in years, I felt protected. The drive wound upward through tree-lined hills until the ocean suddenly appeared, vast and endless. His home came into view at the top of a cliff, a modern house of glass and stone, sunlight spilling across its walls like fire. It didn't feel like the kind of place I belonged. But it was breathtaking. "Home, sweet home," my father said quietly, watching my reaction. He looked nervous, as if afraid I wouldn't approve. I swallowed hard, words caught in my throat. Home. I hadn't called any place that in a long time. Inside, the air smelled faintly of salt and fresh flowers. A woman with kind eyes greeted us at the door, his assistant. Linda, not my mother's replacement, just someone who had helped prepare for me. "The blue bedroom is ready," she said with a warm smile. The blue bedroom. I followed my father up the wide staircase, my legs trembling with exhaustion. At the end of the hall, he opened a door and motioned for me to step inside. I froze. The walls were painted soft blue, sunlight flooding in through tall windows that overlooked the ocean below. A queen-sized bed stood in the center, covered with a fluffy duvet that looked like clouds. A desk and bookshelf sat by the window, and in the corner, a comfortable chair with a blanket draped across it, as if waiting for me. But it was the dresser that made my knees weak. On top of it sat a neat row of wrapped gifts. Different sizes, different wrapping papers, but all untouched. Beside them, a photo album with one word written across the cover. Emily. I stepped closer, my chest aching. My fingers trembled as I touched the edge of a package, still wrapped in silver paper, a tiny tag reading Happy 11th Birthday. Another read, Merry Christmas, 2019. They went on and on, gifts for every year he hadn't been allowed to see me. Tears blurred my vision. My father stood in the doorway, his voice low, almost ashamed. I couldn't give them to you. But I couldn't stop buying them either. I needed you to know. I never stopped thinking of you. I opened the photo album. Inside were school pictures I barely remembered, newspaper clippings of academic awards, and blurry photos that looked like they'd been taken from a distance, me walking out of school, me at a playground. Proof that he had been watching, even when I thought he was gone. I pressed the book to my chest, sobbing so hard it hurt. You really did try. All this time, you really did. Every single day, he whispered. And I'm not going anywhere now. If you'll let me, I want to be your dad again. Whoa. I couldn't answer with words. Instead, I turned and hugged him, burying my face against his chest. His arms closed around me like a shield, strong and steady. For the first time since I was a child, I felt wanted. That night, after a meal of takeout Chinese because neither of us felt like cooking, I climbed into the softest bed I had ever slept in. My body melted into the mattress, my eyes growing heavy. Through the window, I could see the waves crashing against the rocks below, a steady rhythm that lulled me to sleep. As I drifted off, one thought echoed in my mind. Maybe being abandoned at the airport wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning I had always needed. The next morning, I woke disoriented, the room glowing with sunlight. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the memories came rushing back, my mother's heels, the wad of cash, my father's arms, the blue bedroom. I padded downstairs, following the smell of something slightly burnt. My father stood in the kitchen, fumbling with a frying pan. Pancakes, lopsided and charred on the edges. He looked up sheepishly. Guess my cooking hasn't improved since you were little. A laugh burst out of me, small, shaky, but real. I remember your pancakes. You used to make smiley faces with chocolate chips. His eyes lit up, relief flooding his face. You remember that? Some things stick. Duh. I sat at the counter, watching him scrape the pancake onto a plate and slide it toward me. It was ugly, uneven, but it was the most beautiful breakfast I'd ever seen. I took a bite, and tears stung my eyes again, not from sadness this time, but from something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was home. The morning after pancakes, my father asked me to sit with him in the living room. Sunlight poured in through floor-to-ceiling windows, the ocean glittering beyond the glass. He looked serious, his hands folded, a folder resting on the coffee table between us. Emily, he said gently, we need to talk about what happens next. About custody. About keeping you safe. My chest tightened. The word custody had always felt like a weapon my mom used to keep me away from him. Now, hearing it here, it felt different. It felt like possibility. That afternoon, a woman arrived at the house. She wore a navy blazer, carried a leather briefcase, and had the kind of presence that filled the room without her needing to raise her voice. Emily, I'm Judith Miller, she said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, steady. Your dad asked me to meet with you because what your mother did, it wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. The word hit me like a shock. Illegal. Judith explained slowly, carefully, making sure I understood. Leaving a minor alone at an airport without proper arrangements? That's abandonment under the law. And the financial records your father has? They show serious misconduct. If you want to live here, the court will listen. At 15, your voice matters. My voice matters. For so long, I had felt invisible in my mother's house, an afterthought, an inconvenience, background noise to her new life. Now, for the first time, someone was telling me I had power, that I could choose. Still, guilt gnawed at me. I don't want to ruin her life, I whispered. I just don't want to go back. Judith's expression softened. This isn't about ruining anyone's life. It's about protecting yours. You have a right to safety, stability, and honesty. Right now, your mother hasn't given you those things. My father stayed quiet, letting me process, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched when Judith mentioned abandonment. He had lived with this truth for years, powerless to fix it. Now he was finally getting a chance. The next few days blurred into something surreal. Judith and her team gathered documents, checks, letters, court filings, even screenshots of the text messages my mother had sent. I sat at my father's office desk, staring at the piles of evidence, my heart heavy but strangely relieved. The truth wasn't just mine to carry anymore. One evening, as the sun set in streaks of pink over the water, my father joined me on the deck. The air was crisp, 68 degrees, the kind of evening where you needed a blanket but didn't mind the chill. He handed me a mug of hot cocoa and sat beside me. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, he said. If you want to stay silent, we'll respect that. But if you want to speak up, the court will listen. I sipped the cocoa, warmth seeping into me. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back. Ever. The words surprised even me. They came out firm, certain, and the look on his face, pride, relief. Love was worth more than anything money could buy. School started a week later. My father enrolled me in Westlake Academy, one of Seattle's private schools. The first day, I stood frozen in front of the massive brick building, clutching my new backpack. My stomach twisted with nerves. What if I was the outsider again? But something different happened. At lunch, a girl named Haley slid into the seat across from me, sketchbook in hand. You draw? She asked, nodding to the doodles on the corner of my notebook. Before I could answer, she smiled. Sit with us. Her group welcomed me without suspicion, without judgment. It felt foreign, but in the best way. For once, I wasn't the baggage. I was just Emily. That night, I told my dad everything over dinner: how Haley loved art, how another classmate named Zoe shared my obsession with books. My father listened with real interest, his eyes lighting up at every detail. You deserve this, he said softly. You deserve friends who see you, a life where you're wanted. For the first time in years, I believed him. Yet beneath the hope, there was still anger simmering. Every time I looked at the folder of evidence, I thought of the ramen dinners, the secondhand clothes, the nights I cried believing he had abandoned me. My mother had stolen not just my childhood but my trust. Judith reminded me often, healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means building something stronger from what you've endured. And slowly, I was. Each morning, I woke to the sound of waves instead of slammed doors. Each night, I studied at my desk in the blue bedroom, gifts still lined up on the dresser like silent proof of love. The pain was still there, but now it was threaded with something else: strength. Because for the first time, I wasn't just surviving someone else's choices, I was making my own. 1 week later, Judith told us it was time. If I wanted to stay with my father permanently, I needed to collect my belongings from my mother's house. She was still in Bali, sipping cocktails in her private villa, unaware that her absence had given me the courage to leave for good. I thought I was ready. But when the black SUV pulled up to the Beverly Hills mansion I used to call home, my hands began to shake. The gates opened slowly, groaning like they knew I didn't belong here anymore. The house looked the same: perfect hedges, manicured lawn, luxury cars gleaming in the driveway. But to me, it felt different. Cold. Impersonal. Like a museum of a life I was never really part of. My father placed a hand on my shoulder as we walked inside. Judith followed, papers in hand, a legal witness to make everything official. The silence inside the house was deafening. No laughter, no footsteps, just the hum of the air conditioning echoing down the hallways. "Where's your room?" my father asked gently. I led him upstairs to the smallest room at the very end of the hall. The one furthest from the master suite, furthest from my mother. When I opened the door, the smell of lavender detergent hit me. The bed was neatly made, the dresser dusted, as if no one had lived there at all. "This was your room?" he whispered, disbelief in his voice. I nodded automatically. "It's fine," I said, the words falling from habit. His expression softened with pain. "No, sweetheart. It's not fine. You deserved so much more." We began packing. My clothes went into boxes, my books into cartons, my notebooks stacked neatly. I chose carefully, leaving behind anything that was a gift from Robert or my mother. I only wanted what truly belonged to me. That's when I found it. In the back of my closet, behind a row of shoes, a small box sat buried in dust. My heart raced as I pulled it out. Inside was a bundle of envelopes, bound with a rubber band. Every one of them addressed to me, in my father's handwriting. My hands shook as I tore one open. A birthday card for my 13th birthday. A heartfelt message inside. A gift card taped to the corner. None of it had ever reached me. Another envelope. A Christmas card. Another. A letter explaining his new phone number when he moved to Seattle. A photo of him at his company headquarters with a note. "I hope you'll visit someday." Tears blurred my vision. "She kept them from me," I whispered. "All this time, she kept them." My father pulled me into his arms, his own voice breaking. "Never, not for a single day, did I stop loving you." No. The movers carried boxes past us as I clutched the letters to my chest, my heart heavy with both grief and fury. For every year I thought he had forgotten me. My mother had hidden the truth. I moved through the house in a daze, searching. In her office, I found the worst evidence of all, a folder labeled divorce. Inside were financial records showing the child support payments my father had sent, far more than she ever admitted to me. There were court documents of his petitions for visitation, all opposed by her with fabricated excuses. And then, a draft of a letter to her attorney. The words made my blood run cold. "Emily is a complication. She must be managed carefully to ensure Robert's continued commitment." A complication. That's what I was to her. Not a daughter. Not family. Just baggage that threatened her new life. I staggered back, clutching the paper in disbelief. All the ramen dinners. All the secondhand clothes. All the times she told me, "Your father doesn't care." It had been lies. Carefully constructed lies to erase him, and to make me small enough to fit in her new world. Judith glanced at the papers and nodded grimly. "This is important evidence. We'll add it to the case." But I didn't care about the case in that moment. I cared about the years I'd lost, the birthdays I cried alone, the nights I believed I was unwanted. By late afternoon, my room was stripped bare, the bed empty, the dresser hollow, the walls blank. It no longer looked like a bedroom, just a space where a child had once been tolerated, then discarded. I sat at the desk, staring at a sheet of paper, my pen hovering. Words poured out of me, raw and jagged. "Dear Mom, I know the truth now. The letters, the money, the lies. You didn't just abandon me at an airport. You abandoned me years ago, every time you made me feel like an inconvenience. Every time you chose Robert and his children over me. Every time you hid my father's love so I'd believe I was alone. I'm not doing this as revenge. I'm doing this because I deserve better. I'm choosing to live with Dad, to live where I'm wanted, where I'm seen, where I'm not a complication. Maybe one day you'll understand what your choices cost us. But until then, I need to love myself enough to leave." I signed my name with a shaky hand, folded the letter, and placed it on the bare mattress. Beside it, I set the house key, the final symbol that I no longer belonged here. As I walked out of that room for the last time, I didn't look back. Downstairs, my father was waiting by the door. "All done?" he asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He understood anyway. The movers shut the truck doors. Judith locked the evidence safely in her briefcase. And as we drove away, The mansion shrank in the rearview mirror until it was just another house, no longer mine. For the first time, I felt the weight of grief lift, just slightly replaced with something unfamiliar but strong: resolution. I had left behind more than a house. I had left behind the version of myself who believed I wasn't enough. The first sign was the intercom buzzing. Then the camera screen in my father's living room lit up, showing her face. Linda, my mother. She wore a sundress the color of champagne, her hair perfectly highlighted, sunglasses pushed up like a crown. Her SUV idled at the gate, gleaming under the gray Seattle sky. She pressed the button again and again, her voice spilling through the speaker, sharp with false sweetness. Emily, honey, open the gate, we need to talk. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might break free. 3 weeks had passed since the airport. 3 weeks of silence, of unanswered texts and ignored voicemails. And now she was here, at my father's door, as if she could reclaim me with a snap of her manicured fingers. My father placed a steady hand on my arm. You don't have to see her. We can call security. But I shook my head. My throat burned, but my voice came out steady. Number, I want to face her. I need to. Judith arrived minutes later, briefcase in hand, her presence like a wall of steel behind me. Together, we opened the door. My mother's eyes widened the moment she saw me. Relief washed over her face so quickly it almost fooled me. She stepped forward, arms outstretched. Thank God. Emily, baby. I took one step back. Her arms fell. What's going on? She demanded, her voice cracking. Why did you leave? Why are you here with him? Him, as if my father didn't deserve a name. I straightened my shoulders. My voice shook, but the words came strong. Because you abandoned me. At an airport. With nothing but $200 and a stranger's pity. Her smile faltered. Oh, sweetheart, that's not what happened. You misunderstood. It was just independence. Stop! I cut her off, the shout ripping from my chest so loud the air seemed to shudder. You left me. You lied to me for years about Dad. You hid his letters. You stole his support money. And then you walked away without looking back. That's not independence. That's betrayal. No. Her face went pale, but before she could answer, another voice cut in deep, controlled cold. Robert. He strode up the steps like he owned the house. Karen. He snapped. His eyes never leaving my father. This has gone far enough. Get in the car. Excuse me? Judith stepped forward, voice razor sharp. You are trespassing. Leave before I call the police. Robert ignored her. He looked straight at me, his eyes hard, his tone dripping disdain. You're making a mistake, Emily. Your mother has done everything for you. Everything. And this man, he's only using you to hurt her. My blood boiled. Using me? He's the only one who's ever fought for me. He's the one who came when you left me behind. He's the one who kept every gift, every card, every letter. He's my father. You're nothing to me. Robert's jaw clenched. His face turned red. He reached for my mother's arm, yanking her back. Karen, let's go. She's brainwashed. But my mother wrenched free, tears streaking her mascara. Her voice cracked like breaking glass. Emily, please. I made mistakes. I was scared. I wanted security. I thought Robert could give us a better life. A better life? My laugh came out bitter, jagged. I was the baggage. The complication. I read your files. That's what you called me, a complication to be managed. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her face crumpled as if the truth had finally dragged her under. For years I had begged for her love. For years I had swallowed the lies just to keep her approval. But standing here now, with Judith's steady gaze, my father's hand on my back, and the evidence locked in files, I finally saw her clearly. And she couldn't face me. Emily, my father said softly, his voice like an anchor in the storm. Tell her what you want. I turned to my mother, my voice low but ringing with power I never knew I had. I don't want revenge. I don't want excuses. I want boundaries. I'm staying here. With Dad. With the truth. You don't get to rewrite what you did. She stumbled back as if I'd struck her. No, you can't. Judith's voice cut through, calm and lethal. "We have security footage, airline staff statements, bank records, letters, text messages. A judge will decide, not you." Robert cursed under his breath and grabbed my mother's arm again, pulling her toward the SUV. "Enough, let's go." She let him drag her this time. She glanced over her shoulder once, eyes filled with something I couldn't name: fear, regret, maybe love, buried too deep to matter anymore. But she didn't fight for me. She didn't stay. She turned away, just like she had at gate 32. The SUV door slammed shut, the engine roared, and just like that, she was gone. My knees buckled. The sob tore out of me before I could stop it. My father caught me, pulling me against him. Judith placed a hand on my shoulder, steady as stone. The tears came hot, uncontrollable, soaking through my father's shirt. But underneath the grief, a strange relief unfurled. Because this time, it wasn't me being left behind. It was her. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper and old wood polish, the kind of scent that clung to the walls of history. I sat between my father and Judith, my hands cold but steady. Across the aisle, my mother sat stiffly, her face pale, her lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. Robert wasn't there. He had walked away weeks earlier, his better life collapsing under the weight of lawsuits and debts. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it. The moment that would decide where I belonged. The evidence was overwhelming: letters hidden, support money misused, the footage of her leaving me at the airport with nothing but cash in my hand. When Judith presented the file labeled complication, the courtroom shifted, gasps echoing softly. My mother's lawyer tried to spin the story, to paint it as a misunderstanding, an act of desperation, a mother doing her best. But the words rang hollow. At last, the judge looked down at me. "Emily, you're 15. The court wants to hear your wishes." Every eye turned to me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I thought of gate 32. The wad of crumpled bills, the blue bedroom filled with unopened gifts, the pancakes with chocolate chip smiles. I lifted my chin. I want to live with my father. Permanently. Because he never stopped fighting for me. Because he never left me behind. The judge nodded solemnly. "So ordered." The gavel struck wood. The sound reverberated through me, louder than any boarding announcement, stronger than any slammed door. Final, binding. My father squeezed my hand, tears shining in his eyes. Judith leaned close and whispered, "Justice served." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was protection. And it was mine. The months that followed weren't easy. Healing Never Island, I started therapy with Dr. Eleanor Wilson, a woman whose voice was steady and kind, who let me spill years of grief onto her carpet without judgment. "You're allowed to feel it all," she told me one day. "Anger, sadness, relief, even love. They can coexist." No. At first, I hated hearing my mother's name. I wanted to erase her. Cut her out like a tumor. But slowly, with Dr. Wilson's help, I understood something painful but true. Her choices reflected her limitations, not my worth. People who are whole don't abandon their children. Her failures didn't define me. Boundaries became my lifeline. I agreed to court-ordered therapy sessions with her. Though each one was like reopening a wound. She would swing between tearful apologies and weak justifications, insisting she just wanted security, that she had been afraid of ending up alone. "Afraid of being alone?" I said once, my voice trembling with controlled fury. "So you made sure I was alone at an airport instead?" She cried. I didn't. That was the difference. I didn't let her rewrite the story anymore. Seasons changed. Fall leaves turned to Christmas lights, then to spring blossoms. My life began to feel like mine. I studied hard, made friends who cared about me without conditions, even joined the debate club, where I discovered my voice was stronger than I'd ever known. The first holiday with my father's family was overwhelming. Grandparents I barely remembered hugged me like I had never left. Cousins dragged me into games of charades by the fire. My grandmother leaned close during dinner and whispered, "You have his resilience, but that fire in your eyes, that's all you." For once, I believed her. 3 years later, I stood on a stage in a navy cap and gown, delivering the valedictorian speech at my high school graduation. My father's face glowed with pride in the front row. My mother was there too, seated awkwardly a few rows behind, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. We were cordial by then, not close, but honest. I had made peace with the fact that she would never be the mother I needed, and that was enough. College took me across the country. I studied psychology and family law, driven by the memory of that courtroom, that intercom buzz, that wad of cash. I wanted to help kids like me, children caught in the storm of broken families, children who needed someone to tell them their voice mattered. At 25, I wrote my mother a letter, not out of anger, but out of release. "I understand now that you gave what you could. It wasn't enough. It never could be. But I forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Her reply came weeks later. Short, honest. "You deserved better than what I could be. I'm sorry." It was the closest to truth she had ever given me. At 28, I walked down the aisle in a white dress, my father holding my hand. His eyes were wet, his voice a whisper only I could hear. "From the moment you called me from that airport, all I wanted was to see you happy again. Look at you now." My mother came, too. She sat quietly, not claiming a role she hadn't earned, just watching. And for once, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt distance, and also release. Now, years later, when I think of Gate 32, I don't only feel the sting of betrayal. I feel the strength that grew out of it. I see the path it forced me onto, the path that led to truth, to justice, to love that never gave up on me. Abandonment shaped me, but it never defined me. Family isn't who walks you into an airport. It's who comes to get you when everyone else walks away. And I will never forget who did. So how do we apply these lessons to our own lives? Start by honoring your truth. If something happened to you, don't minimize it. Don't let anyone convince you it wasn't real. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Share it with someone safe. Then, set your boundaries. Decide who earns access to you and who doesn't. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Seek healing, but don't rush it. Allow yourself to grieve, to rage, to hope. Healing is messy, but every step counts. And finally, redefine family for yourself. Choose the people who choose you. Surround yourself with those who see your worth and never make you doubt it. Life will hand us betrayals, heartbreak, even abandonment. But those don't get the last word unless we let them. What gets the last word is how we rise. Emily's story reminds us that justice is possible, that healing is possible, that love can survive lies, and that forgiveness, while never easy, can free us to live without chains. The truth is, every one of us has a Gate 32 moment. A moment where someone walks away, where we feel invisible, where we think we're alone. But those moments don't define us. They refine us. They show us what we will no longer accept, and they push us toward the people and places where we truly belong. So if you've ever been left behind, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, if you've ever been abandoned in body or in spirit, hear this. You are not broken. You are not baggage. You are not a complication. You are worthy of love that stays. You are worthy of truth that protects. You are worthy of a family chosen or blood that sees you and claims you fully. And when the time comes, you too can walk away from the places that tried to erase you and step into the life you were meant to have.